Welcome to part 4 of my painting of the Richmond Canal Walk, and I'm painting the underneath the bridge of the I-195 overpass. It connects with 95 and I believe Dock Street and a slew of other bridges. Underneath, of course, is the canal walk. And since the last video, you can see where I have put in the low line area right here. Along with the base of the grass. I'm going to come back and do a lot more detailing in that. So to start off, I'm going to be using my standard palette knife. I have 2 or 3 that I use. I have a small one and I have 2 small ones, and I have 2 larger ones right here. The one to the left, I don't use that often, but I will use it to slather in a bunch. But with this one right here, it's a little bit more flexible, and I feel like I have a lot more freedom with it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put in this part here, this section where the guardrails are of the overpass, and then begin putting in that kind of like greenish tone of the underpass. The piers, or whatever the hell these things are called, holding everything up, I'm going to come back in later and do that. I don't really need that at the moment. As I was looking at this, I think this part here needs a little bit more sky, but I won't know until I come in and begin to detail this out, and I can come in and put more sky back there. So I'm going to start off with a little bit of gray here, and I'm just going to come along here, just kind of cut in a section. Now, if you see right there, I don't like how so much of that is showing. So what I'm going to do here is Helen Van Wyk, she's a painter that has passed on now, but she has a really beautiful idea about painting, and that idea is, if you don't like it, take that shit out. I don't think she actually says it like that, but that's her view on it. If you don't like it, take it out, move it around. If that grape is in that painting and it's in the wrong spot, just go ahead and remove that whole thing. So, and there we go. I'm going to put in a little bit more. And in the last video, I think I was telling you how if a paint isn't dry, or if a paint dries in your palette knife painting, and once it's dry, if you come back over and you need something to kind of be like a hard line, it'll give like a jagged appearance. That's what this is. I probably shouldn't have let that dry, but I can probably come in and kind of, yeah, not perfect, but it's something. Go. And just like that, the guardrail to my overpass, for the most part, is finished. And now a lot of times I kind of step back from a distance to make sure it looks okay. And from here over, I'm going to take my brush. What you can do with paint thinner and your brush, if there's a section of your paint that you don't want to get mixed in with a new layer of paint, you can come in with a thin layer of paint or a paint thinner with a brush and just kind of wipe it over top of it, just like that, and that'll thin it out enough to where you can paint right over top of it. Some artists will not do that, and one of the reasons why is because now that paint is very thin and it will stick to this new layer that I have. But because this new layer is going to be a whole lot thicker, it shouldn't affect it too much. All right. Now I have my greenish layer. Now, I want you to notice this painting here, my reference picture here. I did that so many years ago, and I don't remember the exact green that I used. I think it was a phthalo green, and so I've kind of mixed up some of that. It might be a little bit too phthalo greeny, and that might work. I'll come back to that later on, and if I feel like it's too dark, what I'll do is I'll lighten it up and go over top of it. And as before, I don't care if I go over top of this bridge here, because I'm going to put this part of the bridge in front of this, so it doesn't really bother me too much. Just like that. There we go. Because this part of the bridge is closest to our light source, the sun, it has a tendency to probably be a little bit lighter than the underpass part. So I'm going to take that green and I'm just going to lighten it up. And I've come over this. I took this phthalo green and white and I mixed in some of that gray color. And a lot of times, if you want to see how magical paint can be, or colors can be, it's often in the grayed down colors. That's where your light meets your dark. Yeah. And there's that in-between color where those two colors meet. Just like that. We are done with that part. And there's going to be a whole lot of, I guess, sections under here that are going to be darker. So when you are palette knife painting, when you see someone doing it, it's easy to think that there is a lot of force into the strokes, but there really isn't a lot of force. A lot of times you're just barely laying the color in, because if you jam your brush too hard, you'll lift up a lot of that paint. And, I mean, if that's what you want to do, then so be it. But for the most part, you don't really need to do that. It's just a very light touch. And I've got another. And sometimes the color that you're seeing is not actually an artist laying down the color. Sometimes an artist is just cutting through paint that's already been laid down to give off an illusion that they have laid paint down. That makes sense. Underneath here, it's going to be a lot darker. That green. When you're doing a large scale painting, it's better to mix up a lot of paint, or I wouldn't say a lot of paint, but more paint than you think you'll need, because sometimes getting the same exact consistency every time can be a pain in the ass. So all of this is going to be that green color, but I'm going to come through this green and darken and lighten some of it. When you are finished painting with your palette knives, one thing that I messed up early on in my relationship with palette knives is I would just kind of like clean it off, but I really didn't think about it until later on. I would realize I wasn't getting the same exact effect that I had in previous times. And what'll happen is this paint over time, even if you take and you wipe it off, there's a little bit of that residue on there. And that hardens up, and over time it builds up, and it won't give you the same effect that you had in the past. So you want to make sure that you clean it off. When you don't necessarily have to do it now, but when you get finished for the day, you want to make sure that you clean all that off as best as you can. Palette knife painting, the advantage that palette knife painting has over painting with brushes is that with brushes, there you have to use a lot of solvents and brush cleaners. But with palette knives, you just lightly brush them off with a paper towel, and you are good. And this comes down just like so, very lightly, just like that. Now I know, because of the angle of all this, I may have to come back in the future when this is dry and come back over here with some more clouds, but let's see, that right there is going to cut right through there. There we go. And just like that, the base of all this green is finished. And I'm going to come through with some darker color. And shit, what the hell? Let's just slide it right there. Probably need to darken that up. Step back. As this paint, or this the underpass is going away from us, as this part is moving away, these lines are going to get thinner, or they should get thinner, and just like that. Very lightly patting it. You don't want to jam the tip in. It's not a penis. It's a light. And one more right here, and I'll do that right there. Cut through, just like that. You'll notice that when you are palette knife painting, always the thicker your paint is, the easier it is to work with. And you can cover a lot more real estate and get more coverage of your painting if it's thicker. And I can see that right here, this is actually thicker than here. And I need that actually thicker down here. everything you saw me do right there, I'm actually going to do up here with that same green. First, take this. Still kind of have the sniffles from yesterday. Now what I'm going to do is, because I know that this bridge part here, this pier, is holding this up, I'm going to bring this just like that, cut through all that paint, and I want to scrub it out. And this is another benefit that palette knives have over brushes, in my opinion. And let's see. When I come back, when all this is dry, when all this is dry, I'll come back with a gray color right there. But right now I kind of need to go ahead and finish kind of cleaning. You see how this line goes straight down? This part with the bridge, it's going to need to mirror that. This is like the side of the piers. It's going to have like this line just like that, and I'm going to need to go ahead and knock that off. And that'll take about a day to dry. Yeah, just like so. Nice. And I'm going to have a gray part coming up there. As before, I'm going to take my brush with some paint thinner and just come right up here. Just kind of clean that up. That'll thin that down enough to where I can work with it in a minute. All right, so right here, I've got this part finished where I have kind of like cleaned all of that off and kind of let myself, it's kind of like a mental note of this is exactly how this is going to go. And under here, I can see it on my end. I don't know what it looks like in the video, but right here, there's going to be another, it's going to be a darker part right there. Okay, well, I'm filming something. Okay. Yeah. We'll have to talk about it in a minute, okay? For my gray, I'm mixing, I went ahead and bit the bullet and grabbed some black because I just felt like it would, instead of mixing up some blue and brown, I figured, yeah, what the hell, why not just go ahead and go for the basics, black and white. there are a lot of artists who will not use black in their art. And this is not because they're a bunch of pretentious bastards, though some of them may be. But black has a propensity to dull your colors down. You can darken a color without ever using black. But sometimes I'm just kind of in a rush and I need that color to be exactly dead on. And I think the best way to do that is to just go ahead and grab the colors. I think the artists who say they don't use black because the old masters didn't are wildly inaccurate about that. I think John Singer Sargent, if I am not mistaken, I think it was him. He used quite a bit of black in his paintings. There's a story, I think, of him and Monet painting together. I think it's them two. They went to paint together, and I think it was Sargent said he couldn't paint with him because he didn't have black in his bag or in his toolkit, so to speak. Again, I might be wrong on that, but that's something that I read. I believe I read it on TikTok, so you know there's accuracy historically to that. And this is going to be, I believe, somewhere in, it is now. That might be too thick of a line with a gap there. So I'm going to go ahead and thin this out. And just like that. Shit. Closer to us, it's going to thicken up a little bit. Not much to talk about at the moment. I'm just kind of concentrating on where I'm going to put things, and I may have made this a little bit too dark. This from here over, there's going to be a lot of that same green from over here. It's very light stroke. The one drawback of palette knife paintings is you go through a ton of paper towels. And just like that. And we're done. Shit, no we're not. This right here looks a little too jagged. I'm gonna step back a little bit and take a look. Alright. And I'm glad I did. I looked at my phone and it looks like I have about 4 or 5 more minutes of recording time before it all automatically shuts off. So when I come back, when I tomorrow or the day after that, when I post again, I'll most likely have all this finished, or I may save some of this area in here to show you kind of how I did. But really and truly, all I'm going to be doing is exactly like here, where I'll be taking that greenish color and then just patting in those little dividers that they have in there. So, and like before, I'm going to take my brush and then just lightly with some paint thinner. Shit, there's something in here that's kind of catching onto the paint now. I'll take my brush and I will kind of like clean that area up with the paint thinner. And as I get closer to this area down there, if you'll notice, I start out thicker up here. The position from here to here is thinner than the position from here to there, because again, it's going away from us. So, right. And there we go. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and turn off the camera and keep painting, and I will see you next time.